still motivates me today.
Wow. So this is 10 years ago or thereabouts, the inception of this, yeah?
Yeah, 2014 we started.
So Wellbeing at Work.world, I assume is, and I've looked at it briefly, but it's kind of like a portal with resources, but also indicates more the direction of travel of your overall mission, yes? When did that come about? Because that's not been the whole 10 years. It must have come later, yes?
Yeah, so we started off as a summit business. Really, it was about bringing people together, bringing leaders together. Back then it was educating, inspiring, and just demonstrating the value of focusing on well-being at work. So a lot's changed in the last 10 years. There was a lot of talk on yoga classes and fruit bowls back then, but thankfully we've gone a lot deeper, and I think there's research, there's a lot of data out there, and a lot of proof for leaders to really understand that this enables huge benefits to an organization. We're all looking for high performing teams. We're all looking to reduce absenteeism. We're all looking for healthy cultures. So all of those things can be achieved when organizations really focus on well-being at work.
I think the old 80s boiler room context is long since gone, evaporated, one might say. And well, forgive me, but what we're left with now is a lot of people wanting to be informed. I remember when because I was also in corporate culture back then as well. I remember when people were talking about that sort of thing, the very early stage of corporate social responsibility coming to the fore. It was seen as almost a fad. Yes. Now it's become much more intrinsic to almost daily life. You know, the line managers wanting to know whether or not you've got things in place to help you with your mental health. Do you see a positive near future for us in the workplace?
Well, I'm an optimistic person, so yes. So yes, I do. I guess what happened during COVID is there was a lot of what should we say, spaghetti thrown at the wall. Most
of which didn't stick.
Yeah, and I think as we come out of COVID, and as a wider industry, well-being at work is becoming a bigger and bigger issue, and so it's maturing. And I think now organisations are really starting to think more strategically, which is good. I still think there's a lot of people getting mixed up with wellness and well-being.
Yes.
Well, wellness is a daily habit. That's yoga, that's eating well, that's exercising. That's great. That's things you can control individually. That's what you can do for yourself, for your own wellness. Well-being is actually a state of mind, and so if those external factors, such as the workplace, if there's a toxic culture, if there's poor management, if there's all of these things that are out of our control, even if we're doing the yoga, the eating healthy, looking after ourselves, getting plenty of sleep, your well-being will suffer. So I think organizations need to think about their wider responsibility and really focusing on well-being, not necessarily wellness, because I think that is an individual's responsibility.
I want to toss this over to Stephanie, because I know that in the American situation, I think, forgive me for saying this, I feel like there are acres behind this.
You know, I think it's just kind of, in a way, almost like a patchwork quilt, because you have some companies that say, these companies with huge platforms that talk about, like on this, like if you imagine a storefront, they advertise the things that Chris is talking about, they have this commitment that we really want people to take care of themselves, etc. But then they have time studies telling people that they have to get certain tasks done within 5 minutes, or amount of time where you literally have scheduled and allocated you only a certain amount of time to go to the bathroom. And they actually get this information from other companies who they have retained to do that. So we have this huge emphasis on productivity in the United States in every industry, right down to, I think, even almost to Starbucks or McDonald's. But at the same time, there's this idea that we cannot be committed to well-being and also achieve productivity. When I believe, and I've talked to, and talking to my buddy Javid Farrakani, the work that he has done shows quite the opposite thing. And so the big conversation here is, oh, now, okay, everybody's worked remotely for a while now. So it's now time for you to come back into the workplace.
This is ridiculous.
And it's got like it's kind of like almost variations on a theme. You see this happening, and in some instances, people have just basically said, we're not coming back. We're just not coming back. We're going to continue to do this. And I think that there has to be some recognition, absent some legitimate reason, that for some people, probably many people, remote work works for them because they're not having to deal with daily microaggressions. They're not having to deal with toxicity and all of that in a very upfront way. So what's going to happen here? Who knows? Because in America, the dollar, the bottom line, and it's always about the money.
Of course.
It's all, and money's not a bad thing. I mean, you've got to earn a living, and you've got to make money in order to keep organizations moving forward. I just think that we can have both and.
Well,
so
yes, it should, because certainly money should not be at the expense of mental or physical health. Otherwise, you're like the dragon chasing around trying to bite its own tail.
Yeah.
Well, there was last night I read about a study that I think it's Human Rights Watch did about the state of children in America. And the outlook and the statistics is as dismal as ever. But we have now in this country, we're now going back and allowing children of very young ages, 12 years old, 10 years old, to work in environments, some of which are not safe for them. It's like we've gone back to the 1900s, early 1900s, when children were working in all manner of spaces because they were trying to earn a living for their families. It's in some cases we have fallen back to that. Even though the claim is that we care about our children. And what does that teach them about taking care of themselves?
Mm-hmm. I think what you highlight there, Stephanie, in the US is a common problem globally. I don't think it's just in the US. On the return to office, and I'll put a slightly different slant to this. First of all, well-being to me equals high-performing, high productivity, healthier teams. So reframing well-being as not this sort of fluffy thing on the side. It's actually, if it's ingrained in the organization across all of the touch points, you will achieve high-performing teams. You will achieve high productivity, which means you'll get higher profits. So this well-being at work is the solution to build that productivity.
Absolutely.
Just on a return to office piece, and I wrote something about this recently. And I don't think it's talked about as much. I'm an introvert, so
would you believe?
Having read Quiet by Susan Cain over the summer, I suddenly had this amazing wake up call. It's a great book for both introverts and extroverts, but really to understand the qualities behind introverts. And the lockdown, whilst it was very challenging in many ways, I actually really enjoyed that time. And I think when we talk about coming back to the office, are we really thinking about all different types of people? Because extroverts will desperately want to go back to the office because they feed off the energy of people.
They want an audience. That's an audience.
But introverts actually, if you have an open plan office full of people with lots of noise, that's not attractive to them. However, if you create an environment where there's a quiet space, so really thinking about that, return to the office, giving a free lunch, that's one thing, but where's the incentive? So, really starting to think about the different personalities within your teams. And again, it's not like just demanding coming back to the office. It's actually, we've really thought about this. And I think that's an area that organizations can think about.
Well, this sounds very positive. Stephanie, what's your opinion?
I mean, I agree with Chris 100%. And, I will, and I know some people will probably find this difficult to believe, but I too am an introvert. I need that quiet and what have you. But yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I think I see, well, let me take a step back, because I used to practice labor and employment law, and it's probably, of all of my years as a lawyer, that is the area that I know the most about. And one of the things that I used to do when I was going into a department or into a division, there were certain questions that I would ask just to kind of take the temperature of really what was happening here. And, look at attrition, look at how many grievances, how many people are out on disability leave, what's your attendance rate, et cetera, et cetera. And the responses to those things gave me some sense of what was happening in that space and whether or not it was a healthy space. But the thing that I don't understand, and especially with the whole idea of remote work, is if people are being productive, if people are meeting their metrics and doing some of these other things, why force them to come back if you can see that they are being productive and they are doing their best work in a different space, at home or wherever it is that they are choosing to work? And on top of that, we have to think about the workplace very differently. My son, I have two kids, and my oldest, I have a millennial and I've got a Gen Z. And so my millennial got a job in Chicago, and he's been there now for over a year. This is a second job out of college. And so I was asking him early on, I said, well, tell me about your job. What does it look like? And of course, they come into the workplace if that's what they want to do. But the other aspect of the physical layout is that they have a nap room, they have a video gaming room, I think they have a terrace. And I just thought, you have a nap room, like, when can people go and take naps? Because I come from the world whereas if you sleep at work, you get fired. And he's like, well, if we need to rest, if we need to lay down, we can go up there and take a nap. If we want to play video games to sort of step aside or take some time out, they can go do that. And that speaks to a high level of trust and value that the employer has in them. as opposed to needing to have their finger on them at all times. And I think that when an employer demands without really any real justification or reason, that people begin to return to work. And there was even a partner at one of the big law firms that said, I can't trust or work with someone who's not in the office at least 3 or 4 days a week. Okay, well, but that's your issue, and you need to deal with that yourself and not the employee. So I think that we have to start looking at work very, very differently because of the pace at which the world moves. And also because we've got the millennials are well mannered. The Gen Z, they have lost all patience with everything. And they're just going to kick the door in and say, no, this is what we're doing. So I think that it's imperative that companies and employers begin to look at these things, but also, and this goes back to what you said, Chris, earlier, separate wellness from well-being and not sort of dumping them both in the same bowl, because they're the same and they can be integrated, but they are also very, very different. They're the same in that one can impact the other, but they're also different things.
Okay.
I'll give you one quick example about thinking about work differently. So over the next 2 weeks, we've got our UK summit and Canadian summit, and on both occasions, we've got a law firm talking about implementing a 4-day working week. Now,
Wow.
6 months ago, I got told by professionals, this professional services industry, we cannot do this because we do billable hours, so we cannot do this. Well, it just so happens that in both the UK and Canada, it has happened, and the results are outstanding. So let's rethink work, because you can, the talent attraction and the productivity and the performance in both of those law firms has been outstanding. So it can be done.
Right.
All right. Well, look, thank you so much for popping along to our little channel.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, no, we'll have you back. I'm afraid now you've been here, you're tainted. So you'll have to return at some point. Stephanie, thanks for being the inception of all this. If it wasn't for Stephanie, we wouldn't be having these conversations. And as I was talking to your mentor only the other day, Coraline, it's important to have hard conversations. In fact, Chris, we did a whole thing about suicide awareness and how important it is to be able to talk about these hard topics publicly. I know historically it's been normal modus operandi for everyone to hide away the pain that happens at work because they can escape to home afterwards. I say, and I think you probably agree with me, work should be another place that you enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be that, and I remember because I was in a toxic partnership, and many years ago I worked in a business whereby routinely I was a technical director of a company, and randomly the business development director would come in, put his arms around me in front of my 27 people I was talking to and say, "Don't believe a word this cock says," and I walks out. This was routine in that business, and you can imagine every Monday morning my stomach's churning. I don't want to go. No one should have to put up with that. No one should. Work should be just somewhere else where you go and do something else that you enjoy, not somewhere you fear to be. Chris, thank you very much for being a guest. Stephanie, onwards with our mission. Until the next time anyone comes to this channel, remember, it's most important to look for your physical but also mental wellness. I wish everyone a safe and happy weekend and good mental health. Bye-bye.